the previous speaker. That was really cool. I learned so many new things. And since this is my first time here, I didn't realize there will be speaker notes, so I brought my own.
No, the thing you hold in your hand is always the best.
Okay.
Do you want a pointer? There are laser pointers.
No,
Pointers
it's-
first.
We get a stick.
No. You will see why I don't need a pointer. When does the timer begin?
Whenever you say you're ready.
Okay, so I want to say something before the timer begins. Cheater! So,
It'll come out of the question time.
I find, like, things that I find fascinating are leadership, art, and branding. All three of them, there is no definition of what it is. Everybody has a different idea what it is. And there's so many people making money of telling you what it is and how to do it. And when you get into, deep conversation with most of these people, they don't have an idea either. So this, I want to write and talk about it at a time when I am rich, because currently, if I write leadership is, not that of a rocket science, then it'll affect my chances of getting that position. So now we can begin the timer. So the idea of management comes from military. The first time in history, human history, people who did not know each other were organized together were for the military. They were from different parts of the country, world, race, religion. Nobody cared. They had a common purpose. And few attributes of that organizations were hierarchy, command and control, division of responsibility, etc. And most of that hasn't changed. We still have that today. So at a highest level, that CEO of a public company or anybody who's running a business, management is all about allocation of capital. Basically making a dollar more than a dollar. It could be $1 or it could be $10. So it's mainly about allocation of capital. And then you do it in many ways. You need, you have to understand risk, make good decisions, put right people in the right job, etc., etc. But for people who are not at the very top, it's more nuanced. Conceptually, it's an easy concept to understand, but when you execute it, it's not as easy. So I thought about it since I worked for a company that's 500,000 people to 2 people. So I've seen the diversity in different roles. So I figured management is 4 different aspects. And then the idea of this presentation is how you think about those aspects. So the first is domain management. And that is, you do an MBA, you study marketing, finance, etc. So you're an expert in that domain. To be good in that type of management, you have to follow rules. Like if you're a marketing person, you have 4 Ps. If you're a developer, you have, your rules you follow. So you could become better at those things. There are a set of rules. Your job description can explain what you're going to do. But over time, the learning declines and it becomes tougher for you to adapt to a new thing because you've been doing it for 10 years, you know how it's done. Then second is organizational management, which is commonly, used as leadership or what leadership is. There you're running a division or you have a team. There the job is about aligning people. So you create a shared vision. You create incentives for people to work together or deliver on what you want them to deliver. And third is have goals that they can deliver. I've seen it so many times. In big companies, there's a reorg every 6 months or every month, a year and a half. So it varies. And then nobody tells you how are you supposed to do your job differently. What does that mean to me? So that's organizational management. You can alleviate that just by communicating that, what changes. Then third is perception management, which sounds like manipulating, but I don't like how it sounds. But the idea is, you like it or not, people are going to make decision about you and your team in your absence. So how do you overcome that? You have to find a way to collaborate with people, and then there's 360-degree review that people rate you on, your promotion, a lot of stuff depends on that. And then if you ever wonder why your boss is an idiot and she's getting promoted or he's getting promoted, it's because they're good at perception management. And the last one is feelings management, which is more about how you reject somebody's idea, how you critique somebody. And I've seen this change. You work with older people, and if you're doing something right, if they don't say anything, that means you're doing fine. But the younger people I work with, you have to constantly give positive reinforcement. And then you have this, if you're an engineer, it's easier to give a logical explanation why you think this way. But if you're a designer or a UX person, if you're creative type, they don't take logical explanation well. So you have to find a way how to communicate with them. So how you give feedback becomes more important. So these are the 4 areas, and then we all want to become better managers. So it depends where you are in the hierarchy and what the expectation is from you and what you want. That's how you think about where to focus on among these 4 domains. Thanks. Yeah, Sarah?
So I assume you're trying to put that all together, but do you have a favorite or a part of that you think is the most important, or maybe it depends on what your goals are?
I think when you're early in your career, it's all about domain. You have to learn how, let's say I join.
Subject matter expert.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you're running a division, if you have a P&L responsibility, or you have 100 people reporting to you, then organizational management becomes most important. And then, companies are always doing, we are no longer a product company, we are a solutions company. What does that mean? So in that way, you have to manage perceptions. You have to see, okay, this guy or gal has bought into the new vision. So even if you think it's bullshit, you can't, say that in public forums, or because people will talk about you in your absence, and they're deciding. This is all middle management. If you're very top, do whatever you want. But
if you're Elon
in the middle, then you have to create the perception. And then I think feelings management applies to people who work cross-functionally. If you're a developer mainly working with other engineers, then it doesn't matter so much.
They have feelings too.
Huh? Yes, of course. But it's the same type. It's not different. Yeah, Russell.
Two questions that you can answer, both, or pick whichever one you want. First one, is management an overloaded term? You for each of those domains, you kind of redefined management. You distinguished it at one point from leadership. So when we're talking about management, are we talking about a bunch of different things that all wear the same label? And then the other question is, do you have any sense of what the optimal amount of management, how many managers? I know Google has done some studies to find out if you need managers, what value they provide. So the 2 questions are, is management an overloaded term, and how much do we need managers?
So yes, it is overloaded term, and that is because before the official timing began, I said nobody knows what that means. So a lot of people write books and articles to make money, to define what it is. They're like, management is not leadership. You are a manager. Everybody's a leader in the company. What the fuck? Who's getting led? If everybody's a leader, who's following? But anyway, so I think it is overloaded. It's basically consultants coming up with things to sell their books or consulting assignments. Then second, optimal level depends on the maturity and trust. If there is, trust within an organization, in early days when everybody's aligned on the shared vision, you see non-profits, they don't have as many layers because they're aligned on the shared vision. But they're not good at executing, or they're alignment on vision, but they're not practical about money or how they do things. So there's no clear, like there are studies which say 7 is the right number. You shouldn't have more than 7 direct reports, or a person shouldn't have X number of people in her team. But I can give you a counter example to anything you say. So there is no like right answer. But you see, like even I've read the same studies. Google, didn't have manager. Then some guy convinced that they asked people and they said, yeah, it's direction. Like if you are a developer, you have a question because you can think of 10 different ways you can develop something. And if you don't have a product manager that can direct you or guide you, then how are you supposed to decide that? Who's responsible in the end? If you're responsible, you can decide, but you're not. So how do you decide? So we all need some direction from somebody. The CEO has direction from the board, and they have some targets. Everybody has some direction from somebody. So it's less relevant, what's the ratio is, or you need somebody or not. If you have the direction, then you can perform the duties. Yeah,
One
Sean?
more question? Yeah.
Yeah. Are there any writers or thinkers that you think are pretty good, and why do you like them?
Yeah, so Peter Drucker. So the concept that management can be taught comes from Drucker. Before that, there was no MBA. The idea of MBA comes from basically Drucker's work. Then you have, he says if you read one book on leadership, it's called Cyrus the Great. So I would recommend that highly. But it depends on what are you trying to achieve. You're managing a team, lead. There's a very good book called Lend Me Your Ears. Some people, like they have this, they say something and you believe them. Like all these speeches you hear from like Churchill, who I don't have a lot of respect for, but he was very good orator. So that book is collection of these mind-changing speeches. It's called Lend Me Your Ears. So it gives you good oration for things.
So let's thank Chander again.
Yeah.